Hello, runners, and welcome to New York Road Runners Coaches Chat. My name is Coach Annick Lamar, and I'm so excited for our chat today. And that's because I am joined with Tracy Lockwood Beckerman. Tracy, I'm going to tell you about yourself, but also to our audience. Tracy is a leading women's health expert and a nationally recognized registered dietitian. And Tracy joins us today on behalf of our friends at Flow, the official water of New York Road Runners, and to talk about the United Airlines scene at New York. Oh my gosh, United Airlines NYC Half. So welcome to today's show, Tracy.
Hello, Annick. Hello, everybody.
We are so happy to have you here. Hydration is so important for the runners that we work with. And I know it's one of the top topics that we talk about as coaches. And so you are the right person for today's show. So runners, if you have any questions for Tracy, we're talking hydration, we're talking fueling, we're talking half marathoning, anything that you want to ask us, we would love to respond to that. So go ahead in your chat, drop in your question, and we'll get to them throughout the show. But Tracy, let's jump right into it. For so many of our runners,
Well, let's
we have
take a
this
sip first, right?
let's take this sip of flow water. This is perfect because we do have the half coming up. Let's say you're a runner at home, you're more than a week out from race day. What should hydration look like at this point?
Well, it's an exciting time for everybody because we're less than a week out, and that means it's game time when it comes to hydration. And hopefully, it's looking all right, all right, all right by now. So, I don't know if many of you know this, but water is the most active molecule in the body, and no other nutrient, not one other nutrient, is as essential or is as needed on a daily basis than water. So that is a lot of pressure to get enough water, right? But, I do want to say that just like everyone's unique fingerprint, hydration looks totally different for everybody because at the end of the day, what works for you might not work for your buddy Sally, and what works for Sally might not work for you.
So, as runners are coming to race day, I think there's a tendency to, whatever the version of carbo loading is for drinking, is what runners tend to do, which is like, now I must fuel. What do you recommend runners be doing in the week ahead of race? Should they be
Right.
water fueling, water loading? Or what would you recommend? I think you've got a better piece of advice for us there.
Well, you have to day by day. And that being said, there really is no fluid intake recommendation that works for everyone because everyone has different fluid needs because there are a ton of factors at play. Body content, sweat output, diet, your gender, and no one size all with fluid recommendation, with the macro recommendation. But although you may be following some rough guidelines for hydration for before, during, and after exercise, the general rule of thumb is to drink to thirst and first to look and listen to your body as the best indicator of hydration. So I'll give you a little quiz. There are two elements to look at when it comes to assessing hydration before race. One more obvious than the other. Annick, can you know what they are?
Can I wait? Can I name what they are? Put me in the hot seat here.
Yeah, you do. There are two things that people should look at and assess to really check in with their hydration status. So, what do give me there?
I'm gonna guess. I'm gonna guess P. Does P come into this assessment?
Oh, can you hear
Oh
me?
man. Okay. We hear you. Yeah, there you go. You're a little choppy for us, Tracy. I think we've got some of that classic internet Snafu
Yes.
is happening in action.
There we go.
All
Yes,
right. So Tracy,
that is
what are
okay.
I was going to say, what are the two indicators that we might need to be hydrating
We
more?
okay?
I think we've got it. Yeah, we're back on. Tracy, can you hear us? All right. I'm going to presume Tracy is
We're
gone.
back. Okay. So you said urine.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, runners, stay with us as
Can
we
you
figure
see
out
me?
some. We can
Okay.
see you,
So
Tracy.
sorry.
No, it's good. I think you're back and you're looking a lot clearer for us.
Okay. Okay. It's snowing here where I am, so hope it's not taking us so much from the internet connection.
It is a little bit choppy, but we'll try our best. All right. So Tracy, can you hear me? Yeah, thumbs up. We got it.
Yes. Yes.
All right.
We're
Okay.
good.
Okay, we're going to work with our delay that we have it. So what are the two things that runners need to be thinking about to assess their hydration?
Right. So I think you got it. You said the color of your urine. So doing a color check to see if it is a light, pale yellow, or a clear color. So you have to think lemonade over ice. That lemonade always wins. And then the second one is going to be your thirst levels. Do you have a dry or parched mouth? Are your lips chapped? Are you craving water? So both of those elements will help you assess if you're hydrated to your run, which is super key for a good run for that day.
So we got the thirst mechanism and we've got what color is your urine. Listen to both of those, check them out. Those are super important. We always talk about as coaches, you got to look at your pee, and runners at first are like, what are you talking about? But then, you run for a couple of years and that's one way to do an assessment. And you get really used to being like, ooh, I need to hydrate. So it's sort of a funny yet crude way, but it's really functional. It's about your body's byproduct, and you can use it to assess how you're doing. Let's talk about during the race itself. This is a big question we
Yes.
get. How should runners be hydrating during the race itself?
Well, because it is going to be on the chillier side, looking ahead at the forecast, we have another question for you, a true or false question. So, true or false? Your chance of hydration are lower in the cold months than in warmer months. True or false?
So say it one more time, Tracy, because we cut out there. My chances of becoming dehydrated are higher in the winter months.
Are
I'm going to go
lower
true.
in the cold
Lower.
months, are lower in the colder months. Ugh. So they're actually, that's false. The chances of your dehydration actually increases in the cold months.
And Tracy, why is that?
Do you want to know why? Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry for delay, but because people don't feel as thirsty when the temperature drops. And because of that, people forget to drink enough water. And because it's cold outside, you sweat less than in warmer conditions. But rest assured, you certainly do sweat in cold temperatures and you lose body water exercising in the cold. So it's very important not to underestimate your hydrating in these cooler temperatures, which is supposed to be happening on Sunday. So hopefully it's not too bad out there.
All right, Tracy. So let's say the runners have crossed the finish line. They've completed their United Airlines NYC Half. They're excited. They're ecstatic. Each one of them will get this awesome recovery bag. I think we've got the best recovery bags in the biz, so I can brag about that. I'm very loyal to our recovery bags. They've saved me many a post-race walk-off. But tell us why it's important to be fueling right at the finish of the race, like hydrating, fueling. Why is this important?
Well, first off, congratulations, you just finished the half marathon. That's awesome. So after, you've taken your selfies, you've called your friends and family, you've caught your breath, actually have a small window for recovery to replenish and refill. And that's typically within 1 hour post race. Give or take, another hour. It really just depends on people's schedule and their ability to consume water and fuel after the race, feeling okay. But at a race, it is super important to replace fluids lost with a high quality water, like Flow, that is easy to drink, as well as electrolytes and minerals lost meal snack. And while there aren't any hard guidelines on the amount of water that you do need to race, I think we can all agree on a thing, and that's most runners will finish the race in a dehydrated state.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's true, right? Your body is working hard out there. Your every
You
muscle,
getting me?
every I'm getting you. Every muscle and every molecule is being pressed into service, and you will finish that race as any long run, any challenging effort you do normally. You're going to finish in a depleted state, including some dehydration. Hopefully, you've been sipping your water bottle the week leading into the race. Hopefully, throughout the race, you're taking full advantage of all of the water stations that are there exactly for that purpose of rehydrating and staying as comfortable as possible and not get dehydrated. But we know when you run 13.1
Yes.
miles really hard, it just happens. And so, as Tracy's saying, like definitely drinking that flow water right in the recovery bag. There's going to be a beautiful bottle
Yeah.
of flow water, and just sipping from that and feeling, all the benefits that you get from rehydrating right in that golden window. That hour you're talking about is so important.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's okay that people end race in a dehydrated state, because with due time and enough fluids, the dehydration will go away and hydration truly will kick into higher. And just to also bring it back to why it's so important to drink enough water is because things like recovery, muscle and cellular repair, temp regulation, digestion, all of these are so important and are going to continue to happen post race. So you have to drink enough water to get you to feel your best. And of course, check if that is going to that pale light yellow within an hour or two post race to see what went on.
All right, yeah. So I believe at this moment we're going to have Tracy move a little bit closer to her router. I know the snow is coming down, and so thank you, runners, for joining us. But let's recap a little bit of this. And I love having Tracy on for two reasons. One is I get quizzes, and there's nothing really more fun than a coach being like, "Let's test your knowledge with a quiz." I'm glad I passed. I think I passed. We'll go with that. And so. The fun of having Tracy on is she's an expert. And so let's recap a little bit of what we learned. In the pre-stage of running a race, this is the week before, the months before, you should have a water bottle on site right here, and you should be sipping on it throughout the day. There's no hard and fast perfect rule of how much you should be sipping, but we have two really good mechanisms for telling us that we are in a state of dehydration. And that is one, the color of our urine. If it's looking like a darker than a lemonade, we really need to be drinking more water. And then the second thing is our thirst mechanism. And so we really want to be thinking, is the thirst mechanism an effective It's if you feel thirsty, sometimes they say it's almost too late, like you're dehydrated, you need to be drinking more. And so really listen to that thirst mechanism, really check out the color of your urine, and have constant access to water. It's one of those things that runners forget about a lot. We're busy, we have jobs, we want to go for our runs, but just having that water bottle on site can really be effective in reducing the risk of dehydration, which is essential, as Tracy was saying, for our body's function. For men, their bodies are 50 to 60% water. For women, it's around 55% water. But that's a huge amount of water in the human body, and it's there because it serves an essential function in all your body's needs. And so when you are in a state of dehydration, there's pressure on your cardiac system, and your food has a harder time moving through your system. There's a lot of detriment to your system without water. So super important. Tracy is coming on back in, I think. Tracy, let's see if we have you now. Oh, you're so clear.
Just needed to rejudge a couple things.
I love it. Oh, I love the new improved clear, Tracy. Happy to have you here with us again. I was just recapping all the good information you shared. But Tracy, let's hop right back into one of my favorite questions and why I do love our partnership with Flow Water. Flow's known for their sustainability, but for those who maybe are unfamiliar, can you tell us what Flow Water is doing to be more responsible with their bottles? Like, what's unique about these bottles?
I know that's so great that you're bringing up their sustainability, because beyond being the ultimate replenisher, Flow is making it their mission to make water healthier for you and water healthier for the planet too. So what's unique about Flow is that both the packaging, which is eco-friendly, plant-based, and 100% recyclable, and the water, which is sourced from 2 artisan springs, is sustainable. So these days, it's super common for brands to either have sustainable packaging or sustainable water. And Flow having both of these sustainable components makes them truly stand out from the crowd. Plus, something to note, which is awesome, is that Flow has been a certified B Corp since 2017, which basically means that it hits all of those highest standards when it comes to social and environmental accountability. And they even have the highest B Corp score than any other leading brand. So they are really ticking off all the boxes when it comes to impressive sustainability.
I love that. I did not know that Flow was a B Corp. So I'm learning so much too. I just knew they had cool water bottles and I felt better about recycling them than I normally do. But I didn't know about
Yeah.
B Corp status. It's like social responsibility corporation. That's really
It's
cool. Yeah.
great.
So
And what's
runners.
also really awesome, just about their packaging, besides having the cool logo and everything in between, they have a low carbon footprint. So it's actually 4 times lower than plastic, 5 times lower than aluminum, and 8.5 times lower than glass bottles. So all of these don't even compare when it comes to Flow's packaging that really has this low carbon footprint on the environment.
Yeah, it's really cool. I wish I had one right now, but I had one like the other day. I was drinking a Flow bottle, and then I was like, and I can just put, yeah, it's exactly that. It's in this beautiful sort of like, I don't know if they call it cardboard, but it's just like this beautiful collapsible. It sort of smushes flat when
Yes,
you're done with it, and it's such a different
yes, you
drinking
can.
experience.
Yes, exactly. You can
Yeah,
open up like the sides of it. It reminds me when you were a kid and you used to open up your juice boxes and keep the flaps out of the side. But
Tracy, I'm
it does.
happy you said that. That's
Not just
exactly
me
what I was about
though.
to say. If you were a kid in the 90s and you didn't have a phone, the really fun thing to do was play with your juice box after you were done in the cafeteria, like Tracy and me. And
Why
kids these
is
days,
that why?
how
So
we passed
funny.
our time.
Oh,
Oh, that
that's
makes me laugh.
hilarious.
No, yeah, so I do love this because and runners can also they can experience Flow Water at our experience. So runners, when you go pick up your bibs, you can stop by the Flow Experience booth and you can sample it. And so really go say hi to them. They're the nicest folks. They're super passionate about their products and they really want to talk to you. And, I always love to stop by the experience booths and learn from the experts themselves. So when you go get your bib and you're checking out all the cool things happening, definitely stop by Flowwater's booth, talk to them. They're super friendly. And you can ask all the cool sustainability questions there too, because even Coach Annick is learning on air live all about B Corp and all the cool stuff. I love it. Well, Tracy, do you have some time for some questions and some shout outs?
Let's do it.
All right, we got a couple shout outs coming in, so I'm going to run through them real quick. But we have Janara says, good morning from the Bronx. Ruby says, hello from Michigan. Maureen says, hi. Yasi says, hello, Club Run to Rise, which I think is in New Jersey. Maricela says, good morning from St. Petersburg, Florida. We are jealous of that one. Jean-Francois says, bonjour. We say bonjour right back. Indu says, hello from Hillsborough, New Jersey. I'm from Central New Jersey, so I always love to see the Jersey folks. And then I think Joan might win this one. Hi from Ireland, which is, I think, the farthest person joining us today. Looking forward to the day. Happy St. Patrick's Day, says Joan. And also far away, Dennis says hello from Bergen County, New Jersey. I'm just joking. That's also quite close to. Hello, runners. Thank you so much for joining us and listening to us today. All right, so we have 2 questions. One's for you and one's for me. So let's start with you, Tracy. What is the best strategy for getting gel and water? So I know this is a question sometimes folks have. Maybe just going back to talking about during the race, we've got a lot of aid stations, and folks are just wanting to make sure that they bring in enough water and maybe some nutrition along the way. Do you have any broad tips for how to make sure you're staying hydrated during the half marathon itself?
Certainly. Everyone's different, like I said, with when they are going to be wanting some type of gel or water during the race. I would recommend to take a nice swig or gulp of water every 15 minutes or so. That will at least make sure that you don't hit into that dehydration point that we're all trying to avoid, of course. And it will also give you an opportunity to reintroduce some fluids into your body. Some people, it depends, where you are at, but some people like to gulp, meaning take in a large amount of ounces of water, while others like to sip, where they have smaller amounts of fluid introduced to their GI system. There's 2 different techniques. It really just depends on your comfort in taking in amount of a large fluid or having small amounts, because everyone's GI system is very different. You just want to make sure that you don't have any disturbances along the way. And that's why I would absolutely recommend seeing if you do tolerate a nice gulp of water, or if you need a little sip, because both of those techniques, obviously they work, but you just have to tune in to see what feels best for your own body during the race.
I love that. And as coaches, we always say, don't feel like you have to go through the water station like a pro runner, like smashing the water, throwing it back, and then sprinting away. Like the water stations are super essential for hydration, for your body's physical process, for feeling better. So if you have to slow down, walk, stop, drink your water, and start running again, we'd rather you get more water than save a couple seconds and put all your water down the front of your shirt. So from a coaching perspective, it's definitely important. I think a lot of runners are like, I don't want to waste time. I feel it's like not I don't feel thirsty because they're feeling a lot of other sensations,
emotions and feelings.
Right, or they're jazzed, they want to go. Definitely slow down the aid station, get the water, whether it's a gulp or a sip, try out what works for your system. But please take advantage of the aid stations. They're super important. And then if you have like a gel or, some sort of fueling, you can take it there as well. And the packaging on your whichever one you choose will tell you when you should be taking it. Typically they kick in around 45 minutes. Folks are like, into the race, you should be having something in your system. But the aid station, the water stations are a great place to be taking whatever fuel, so you can get that double combo of fuel and water. So that's a good question. I love that one.
And
okay,
also
here's another one.
Another thing. Oh, I was going to say, that's a place where collisions happen if things happen too quickly. So you don't want to just get there and be so fast, you have to be thoughtful of the people around you as well.
Yeah, and if you see the aerial view of our aid stations, they are so long. So runners, you
Yes,
can like pass
yes,
the first table, you can pass the first 4 tables. There's still table on table on table. So don't
yeah.
worry, we're not running out of water. We have it for you. So choose a later table that's a little bit less crowded. Take your time with it, and we recycle all of our cups as well. So that's also fun too. So that's our sustainability at New York Roadrunners. All right, before we hop into our second segment here, there's one quick race. It's about, do I still have time to register for the race or not? Unfortunately, the race is closed at this point, so we can't have any registration for the United Airlines NYC Half, but we always encourage you to go to our website. We have so many races going on at New York Roadrunners all the time, to the point that Coach Annick cannot always remember the 50 plus races that seem to be happening at our organization. So I promise you there is something on the website that would appeal to you. We have different distances and different locations, different courses, a lot of cool options. NYRR.org. Check it out and find a race that works for you. All right, Tracy. Well, you ready to hop into our second section here? We're talking a little bit more about women's health, and I'm super excited because you're our expert on this. Yes.
Yes, I happen to have written a book. Whoop, there we go. About women's health. So I'm so excited to be bringing this conversation to exercise and to hydration and to just overall women's health in general.
I love it. All right. Let's narrow this conversation a little bit into women runners and what they need to know. Women are just not small men. Like they're just not copies of men. There's unique physiology that happens. So are there specifics that women should know about hydrating in general and about being in endurance sports? When we think about women and hydration, is there anything unique that we should be aware of?
Well, if it were only so easy to say that the reproductive system and the menstrual cycle had no effects on hydration, but that is certainly not the case. And we have our lovely hormones to thank for that. So let's take just a quick high level glimpse at the menstrual cycle. So, for the sake of time, let's divide it into two parts: when you have your period and when you don't have your period. The follicular or the first phase is when you have your period, and the second or luteal phase is when you don't have your period. Okay. So the second phase is the time when your body is really prepping for your next period for the next cycle, which is right around the corner, or perhaps you've gotten pregnant. So either way, hormones are coming whether we like it or not. And during this second phase of the cycle, there's typically a surge in both sex hormones, estrogen and progesterone, both of which may cause us to retain water, obviously affecting our hydration. And studies have found that both hormones disrupt fluid and sodium regulation in the body, which makes it harder to feel hydrated and makes it harder to fit into your favorite pants because we feel extra bloated. So basically, these hormones mess with our thirst cues. And that's why hydrating in general can be more of a challenge if you are in this phase of the cycle. Plus, if you are in the second phase of the cycle, you may not be hitting your PRs. And don't worry, that's not because you're falling behind in training or you're slacking. It's really because estrogen, the sex hormone, needs free fatty acids, which are AKA fats, not carbohydrates for production. And that relationship impedes our running performance because I'm not sure if you guys know, but fats are not as accessible as carbohydrates for energy, making us feel a little bit winded and much more like we're riding the struggle bus when it comes to getting through our workouts. And finally, the final hormone cherry on top is progesterone. So, progesterone is catabolic in nature. Basically, this means that it's more has more breakdown effects in the body. And progesterone increases protein loss. It kicks sodium out of the body, which means you have to be much more aware to get water and protein into your body during this phase. But before you guys are down in the dumps, I do have a silver lining. The good news is that if you are able to track your cycle through an app or even the calendar, your output efforts and your performance results may just make a lot more sense in your training and feel like less of a mystery. And then we can really look towards biology and science to work with us rather than against us. And I'm all for knowledge is power. So I'm not sure if you were able to comprehend the cycle days, but absolutely, it all plays a role in our hydration and our performance at the end of the day.
Tracy, I love that because I think, I remember being a young athlete in New Jersey in the 90s, and the idea of tracking your cycle was just about as taboo as topics could get. We were
Definitely.
athletes, we just happened to be women. And now I'm so thankful that science is saying, hey, there's a real reason why you're having certain sort of performances on certain days that, by golly, do they seem to line up with certain parts of your cycle? So I think it's a much more fun time to be a woman athlete. It's a fun time to be able to see hormone flux and how that impacts how you feel. And it's so unique.
Yeah.
Certain athletes crush it when they're on their periods, certain athletes don't. But it really is person to person. But you're right, there are these sort of like waves of feeling. But I do appreciate knowing that, there are times where your thirst mechanism is going to be like, you're good. And you do need to hydrate. Like, you still need to be hydrating, and you need to be thoughtful that your body might be having that moment where it's maybe not telling you what you need.
Right. It kind of comes down to just overriding those feelings and those thoughts and just understanding that hormones do come in waves, but your need for hydration and fuel are always going to be stagnant.
Absolutely, especially if you're an endurance athlete, it's essential to fuel. I think I'm so thankful for the science community for debunking these myths about restrictive eating leading to weight loss.
Mhm.
It doesn't. I'm really thankful for the community and folks like you who just really prioritize fueling well. And let's talk about that a little bit. When we talk
Yeah.
about fueling, it's just a catch-all phrase to talk about what you're putting in your body that is not necessarily water, right? But it's just, how are you eating? How are you nurturing and nourishing yourself?
Both of them.
Both of them, in a new word I invented. How do you recommend women who typically get a lot of messaging about diet restriction and food restriction? How do you recommend women adequately fuel their bodies for running?
Well, how much time do you have?
I think you have a book
That's
for it for that.
well, I'm so glad that we're talking about this because this is especially important in women, because fueling their diets properly when training will really just help reduce the risk of nutrient deficiencies that are super common in runners, like calcium deficiency, vitamin D, zinc, and iron, and also to prevent too much weight loss, which really puts women at an increased risk for losing their periods and disrupting their cycle lengths. Really, this theme of not fueling your body adequately has really been like the bane of my existence for years, just because I've seen time and time again women who restrict their diets and eat less calories during training and truly end up with myriad issues when it comes to reproductive health. And I say to them, every time I wish I was there in the beginning, holding their hands, telling them to fuel up right, and not listen to that outside noise telling them otherwise. But anyway, so facing the reality and the nutrition facts here, women need to eat adequate carbohydrates for accessible fuel. Women need to eat adequate fat for recovery, and women need to eat, adequate protein for recovery, and need to eat adequate fat for hormone regulation, for essential fat soluble vitamins, and of course for satiety, aka keeping us full. So, if we do eat all three macronutrients at each meal, it will truly do the trick. And it's worth repeating that women need carbohydrates, especially as an endurance athlete, in order to really keep their reproductive systems running smoothly. So let's say somebody is restricting their carbohydrate intake. The body is smart and interprets this as a time of high stress. So cortisol, which is our stress hormone, comes running in. And unfortunately, too much cortisol in the body really impacts a ton of systems and really impedes that regulation of those two sex hormones I was talking about, progesterone and estrogen, which really may end up pausing the cycle and really messing with the cycle length. So it is extremely important not to be afraid of carbohydrates. In fact, to embrace them and try them out in new ways that perhaps you've never had before. Like, I know people are super into oatmeal, of course, because it's cooler outside, but you can even do quinoa in the mornings with peanut butter and berries instead, or you can have whole grain bread, fruit, fortified cereal. All of those work as great carbohydrates to introduce to the body.
I love it. Oh my gosh, Tracy, I could just talk to you all day because I mean it's so true. Like carbohydrates are, they're the primary source for energy production, right? And so to say you're going
Yes,
to limit or restrain carbohydrates is to say you're going to leave a lot of energy on the table to the detriment of your health and as coaches, as dietitians, your future health, which really I think is where we get scared. It's not just that you're not going to PR, it's that you could have a loss of your period, and then you can have other bone density issues down the line. And we want to say
hmm
fuel now, fuel well, and fuel for your health. And that means having a really robust eating and not being sort of tapped into diet culture, which tells us to restrict.
absolutely. And I'm so happy that we're talking about it, just because you don't want people to get also in the rut of eating the same things every day when it comes to training. And if you just kind of zoom out for a second and look towards so many other different options of food where you are able to reap these health benefits and vitamins and minerals and antioxidants with different types of colors and textures to just keep things interesting, it makes you a more excited and not as monotonous eater, so to speak.
I love it, Tracy. And in terms of fueling and periods, is there anything runners should be uniquely aware about?
Definitely. And also, just another great topic to bring up. I don't know if people talked about this, that people can have their periods while running, and it's okay. It doesn't have to necessarily sideline you, because running while on your period can actually help reduce cramps and discomfort and can improve your mood. So it's not an automatic doomsday, trust me. Initially you may feel hesitant to work out if you do have your period, and that's okay. Some people want to be sitting on their couch while others would rather be running outside. But I do know that getting outside does make you physically feel better, to get your body moving, your blood flowing, and those endorphins pumping. So a lot of like period induced symptoms like headaches, bloat, dehydration are obviously things to watch for, that people can experience. But I have a couple of tips to give, to tune up your nutrition to help really reduce these pesky period symptoms. I'm going to leave them to 5 easy hacks, but I feel like I can also talk about this for hours. But starting with the first one. The first one is really to lay off the junk food, especially right before your cycle, to reduce excessive bloating. We all get cravings during PMS, and we know that this is super real. So just get ahead of these cravings and arm yourself with real nutrients and vitamins and minerals coming from foods like yogurt, from fruit, from cheese, popcorn, obviously dark chocolate, which is delicious. The second one is to really steer away from alcohol and too much caffeine, both before and during your period, to help minimize these chances of headaches and dehydration. So, caffeine really bumps up your heart rate and your blood pressure, while alcohol messes with your digestion and your sleep quality. So, really keeping these outside factors to a minimum will help benefit you on race day. And the third one is really just keeping your gut health in check and avoiding PMS related diarrhea or even running related diarrhea by having more probiotic rich foods coming from yogurt or kefir, prebiotic rich foods, which are found in oatmeal and bananas, and anti inflammatory foods, colorful foods like flax seeds, sweet potatoes, and zucchini. The fourth tip is not nutrition, but it's to maintain good sleep hygiene. So, periods are naturally an inflammatory process, no matter what, that requires the body to heal and recover. So, sleeping for your is really essential for your body to restore, refuel, and function properly, really, as you prep for the race day. And then the final tip is to really just keep foods on the lighter side if you're running while on your period. Just don't test the waters and try out new foods, and just stay clear of raw, tough to digest vegetables, cold salads, like spicy foods, even creamy or fried foods. All of these are hard to digest for some folks. So really sticking with cooked, warm, soothing foods that don't aggravate your system more than it needs to be. And also, like I said, everyone feels differently while they're on their period. Take notes how you feel. Some things work for others more than others. So you really need to have your bag of tricks when it comes to period health and period maintenance.
I think that's so helpful. I think there's a phrase that we have as coaches, Tracy, which is nothing new on race day. And I feel like there should be like a
Yes.
second quote, which is like nothing new during your period. Like go with things you know your body, just like a race. Don't try introducing
I need to
strange
make a
things that you
t-shirt. That's a great one.
nothing new on your period. Well, Tracy, I've got a couple shout outs here, and then I want to answer any questions we have. So, runners, this is the last call. If you have a hydration question, go ahead and drop it in the chat for Tracy. We would love to answer it. But let's get to some shout outs. So we have Edgar who says hello from East Harlem. Hello, Edgar. Mercedes says hello from Queens, New York. They'll be running the United Half for the first time. So good luck, Mercedes. Karina says hi from Argentina. Rennie says hello from Palm Beach, Florida. So hello to all our runners who are tuning in here. Tracy, we are approaching the end of our show here, but I'd love for you to give us, I'm going to put you on the spot here. I'd love for you to give us one piece of advice for our runners about hydration. What is something that they can keep in their mind, or a tip that they can carry into race day, something that they can just have so they can really nail the hydration game and run their best performance?
Most runners don't realize that they're actually dehydrated before they even start racing. So, my biggest tip would be to make sure that you're hydrated even before you start the race. That way, you know that you're starting from a good baseline, you have a good equilibrium that you're beginning with, and that from there, dehydration, yes, may happen a little bit, but at least you know that you can control the before picture rather than the during picture. So that would be my words of advice, folks.
I love it. No, I mean it's so accurate, right? I think it applies to being I think folks think that they're hydrated. I just read a study too that it was about women endurance athletes, which have not been studied enough. But it talked about how they're always in like a carbohydrate and caloric deficit. So I think as
Deficit,
runners,
yep.
we live in fear of eating too much food or drinking too much water. But the reality is we're almost always dehydrated and we are almost always underfueled. So I love
Right.
that tip because it says like runners, you got to nail this to get your best performance.
Yes. And if there's something that you can proactively do beforehand, what's better than that to know you've at least done your best before?
Absolutely. All right. And we did have one question come on in here. So I'm happy to see that. And the question is from Dennis: should I hit every water station? How do I decide if I should have water or a Gatorade, for example? What would you say to Dennis about that?
Hmm. Well, Dennis, I would say thank you for the question. And I feel like hitting every water station could be beneficial, especially if you need that reminder of time to hydrate, time to hydrate. I do feel that if you are, you guys are a couple of days out, see how your body reacts with the combination of water and or Gatorade, or you can also just stick with water or stick with the other. Just it really depends on how you feel and how your energy is in that moment. Remember that during race day, you could feel a little bit more distracted based on the environmental factors, all the people around you, all the excitement. So that reminder of going to every water station could be beneficial as a little nudge. Dennis, it's time to at least introduce a little bit of fluids, either coming from water or Gatorade. It could be beneficial to how you feel. So I guess in short, I would see how it goes by going to the water stations. You don't necessarily need to finish everything when you are given that cup, but at least it gives you a little reminder of a little sip and see how you feel after.
I love it because it is that psychological, like, hey, this, especially if it's cold, especially if you're nervous and
Yeah.
excited, when it's cold, we're all like, we don't need to drink. Our brains like are not the most helpful thing at that moment.
Yes, it turns
They're trying,
off. Exactly.
and so, to say, okay, I'm going to run through the station. I'm going to grab that cup. Maybe I don't have to chug it. I don't want, I don't need
Right.
to chug a cup. I think you and I can say you don't need to chug a big glass of water every single, fluid stop. But it's
Yes.
not a bad idea to be taking in some of that so you can feel comfortable. And it's not like you hit mile 10, you're dying of thirst, you're hitting a wall, you feel deeply uncomfortable because water is not going to save you at that minute. Like you're not going to then drink a big
Hmm.
cup of water and go, I feel great. Like it's almost too late when you hit a wall. So you do need to, rather you be hydrating early than have to,
Absolutely.
backfill and try and fix it later at the end because fueling doesn't work that. You don't put the water in and it just immediately does its job. It does take some digestion time. So really I
Hmm.
love that just mental reminder of sitting there. All right, runners. Well, I think we've got through all the questions. Tracy, I'm so happy you joined us today. Thank you for coming in here, dropping all your expertise and knowledge. Thanks to our friends at Flow Water for inviting you on. You've been such a
Thank
delight to
you.
talk to and so gracious through the technological errors that are our day. So thank you, Tracy, for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me today. It was great to talk with you as well.
And to all our runners who are running the United Airlines NYC Half, good luck. We are so excited for you. You're so close to the finish. You've got this. Keep hydrating, keep healthy, and we'll see you on race day, friends. Have a good one, everyone.